Hey everyone, Stephanie Denman here from the Denman Homestead, and today I'm starting a new project. Are you surprised? But I wanted to show you what I purchased for this new project, which is kind of another secret project, but not one that I have to hide from Buddy. In fact, Buddy is going to help me with this one. Excuse my voice, I've got a little bit of a head cold. 'Tis the season for pollen and all the things, right? So, what do you think that is? I went online to Amazon and I researched a bunch of different makers of companies and I read reviews and I settled on this one. Do you know what it is yet? I'll turn you around so you can see better. So, this is a mold. It is 24 inches, and I'm going to use this as another epoxy table, but it's going to be around. You could use it probably maybe as a coffee table or like a side table. But I'm actually going to be doing something super special for someone who is super special in my life. And this mold is really well made that I can tell. Some of the other ones were like flimsy silicone that they shoved it in a bag and when you like unfolded it, it never truly took its shape. So I'm excited to try this one out instead of having to make my own wooden form, because if you remember, that's what I did for Buddy's in his office. I'll give you a reminder of what I did with his epoxy. And I gave it to him around Christmas time. So I did not have any silicone sealant. And if you've been keeping up with my epoxy journey, my last piece of Buddy's desk, I used a polyurethane-based sealant, and I didn't use silicone because I ran out. That was a disaster. It literally dissolved in the epoxy. So I went to the hardware store today, and I picked up more silicone sealant, caulking, so that I can caulk throughout all around this circle mold, and anywhere that the epoxy can seep through and leak through. So I'm gonna do that today because last time when I did it the day before I did a pour and let it set for about a day, and it worked out perfectly fine. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go ahead and get this all prepped and ready, because after I do this and let it sit, I have to actually cut some wood, and this part is going to be a little bit more challenging because, well, it is, and you'll see why. Okay, I just did a quick little vacuum of this mold because there was some tiny little pieces of, I guess how they cut this, little flakes of this, I'm guessing it's like a plexiglass material, and I wanted to just get some of that out, just clean it up a little bit. Just a quick rundown of this kit. What it came with was a mallet, and they say to help you like break the mold out, and some of these little blocks that are to help hold down the wood inside the table, so when you clamp it you can set this down on top of it. They gave me quite a bit of those, and then some wedges, so when you take this off you can put the wedge in between the base of the epoxy table and the bottom, and it helps to knock it free. And then some extra screws and little nuts that came with it, so just in case I guess I lose some of these over time, which is really nice. So, because they're kind of specialty looking nuts. When you're working with caulk, it is a lot cleaner and easier for you if your finger is already wet. So I like to kind of just dampen my finger and run it along the edges caulk, and it will clean up easy. Okay, so I've just gone along the edge and that seam, and that's where I wanted to put a little bit more because it was kind of thin. And this was so much easier than building my wooden mold, but that's okay. I mean, I like to have experienced that experience building my own mold and then now using this pre-made one for a circle. So now I need to take inventory of my epoxy because I really don't know exactly how much I have left over from Buddy's project, and I need to know if I need to buy more supplies. This is where I keep all my stuff. This is my fancy storage right by my desk, by my computer. I can already tell that's not going to be enough. But it will be enough to start my base pour because I'm going to do maybe a slightly tinted bottom. Then I'm going to set the wood in it, and then I'm going to let that set up for a few days and then do another pour on, to finish the pour on top so that it's not a completely clear table. It'll have a little bit of a tint on the bottom, making it look, have some dimension to it. Okay, so I used an online calculator. There's a bunch of them that you can Google. And it told me for a 2-inch thick, 24-inch by 24-inch circumference, diameter, whatever, I'm gonna need 5 gallons. And I have 2-ish already. So I just got on Amazon and I went ahead and I stuck with the liquid glass brand because if I'm going to be mixing the 2 deep pours, I want to make sure that I'm going to use the same brand. And I mixed them up before with Buddy's desk. I did different brands, and it was totally fine. But because it's a smaller piece, and I just want to make sure that there's less chance of imperfections. So went with liquid glass, bought 3 more gallons, so a total of 5 should be a perfect amount. So now I'm gonna let this set all day, and tomorrow we can come back and spray it with the mold release spray, which I'll show you tomorrow what that looks like. But today, now that I've got the order put in for more epoxy, I need to get the wood piece that's going in here cut to size. I had a changed my mind on how I'm gonna try to cut this. Originally, I thought I was going to try to use a chainsaw to cut through this, to make a slab of this wood, which is going to be the main focus of the table because it's a heart shape and it's a very special piece for my Aunt Raquel. And this was a cutting that I got, her husband gave it to me, from a really special tree that they loved on their property that unfortunately the tree died and they had to cut it down, but they saved this one heart-shaped piece, so I want to try to get a slab of it out and use it in the table. So I'm thinking I'm gonna try this first. I just think this is gonna be a little bit more control. I have different blades if this one isn't going to work, but I feel like the chainsaw might be I just feel like as soon as I touch this log or the chainsaw to the log, it's just not a stable enough piece for a big chainsaw. So I'm going to just see if I can't go slow and steady with this thing first. And then if we have to go to chainsaw, we'll go to chainsaw. I also brought some clamps so I can clamp it to this table for security. So let's see if it works. First, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure. I'm gonna measure and make some marks because I wanna make sure I try to get as uniform as possible because I can come back and plane it later, but I would rather get what I need the majority the first time, if that makes sense. I think I'm gonna try to cut off think I'm gonna try to do 2 inches. I'm actually really nervous about this because I only have 1 shot at this. 1 shot, no pressure. I've actually made decent progress, I think. It's very slow going. It's not, I think because there's just so much sawdust, I have to kind of go slow so it can come back out. But I'm gonna try my DeWalt and with a new blade. This Craftsman is just super heavy and my arm is already fatigued just trying to get through that. And this one's a little bit more lightweight. Well, I say it is, but I don't know. But I'm gonna switch out this blade to a newer one, a longer one like that one, and see if I can't speed this up a bit. Okay, definitely gonna have to take multiple breaks. I don't know if I'm just fatigued or what, but it's gonna work. I know that for sure. I'm just kind of slowly just making my way around as best I can, even as I can, meeting up with my marks, and slow and steady. It smells really good. I'm 99% sure this is cedar. It smells like cedar, but yeah, so still have to get all the way around this edge, but I'm just gonna go work slowly and I will let you know when I'm done. Well, this is embarrassing. How many tools I ended up getting out to try to get this thing apart, but it happened. It happened. And my forearms are legitimately dead, but I am happy with this. A little scared because this crack right here started to really widen at one point, so I had to back off and change tactics and adapt, but I think it's great. I think it's gonna look really good in the middle of this table. So the second part of this is gonna be, I have to debark around the edge of this, and then I will sand it down a bit to, make it more uniform. And then we will seal it with the first coat of epoxy and let that cure. And then we can get going on that. But first, I gotta clean this up. All right. Now, one of my most fun parts, I think, or favorite parts, is to take the bark off around the edge. And the reason why you need to do this is because you really need the epoxy to be able to penetrate directly into the wood. And if there's bark fragments in the way, it can lead to your piece separating within the table, breaking away. It makes it like a weak point within the epoxy. So it makes sense. Like if your main epoxy is stuck to something that's really brittle, then the main thing that it's stuck to can easily break away. So we're gonna take away all the little brittle bits. And what I have here is I have a couple different size chisels. So I'm just gonna, I brought both of them just so I can kind of use the size that I need to. And I'm just giving it a little bit of a tap down the sides, and it's just easily peeling off. Let me see if I can get one where you guys can see. It's a good amount. So I'm just kind of eyeballing where it starts to break away from the edge and just giving it a little tap as I go down. And really you can just kind of peel some of this off with your hands if it's easy enough. Just like that. I'm gonna go all the way around. Okay, so I have done the...
I thought I was gonna have to help you with that.
Oh, well.
Did you chainsaw it?
No. Used every other tool we had. I just thought the chainsaw was gonna be way too unstable.
Okay.
So I've debarked it. And now I've just gotta sand it so it's smooth on both sides.
Beautiful.
And then I can epoxy it. Cool, huh?
Mm-hmm.
My forearms are literally shaking and it's hard for me to hold the phone as I'm so sore. I went through like 4 different batteries and I had to borrow your mom's too.
On what?
The reciprocating saws.
Oh.
DeWalt and Craftsman.
Dang.
This was a hard puppy to saw through.
I bet.
But I just felt like it was more controllable
Yeah.
with that, so
Very nice.
yeah, I like it. And now we move on. All right, so I've got my little table set up here, my little workstation. I have my planer here and I've got my sander down there. I'm gonna plane off first some of these larger edges, both on this side and on the back, to try to make it a more even surface before I start sanding. Otherwise I'm gonna be sanding on that little nugget for 30 minutes. So I'm gonna try to even this up with the planer and then we'll sand it. We've planed it. We've got it all semi-level-ish. But I'm gonna go ahead and start sanding this. I didn't want to plane all the way as much as I want to because of the cracks throughout this wood. I really don't want it to split apart on me. And the more I take off, the more unstable this wood will become. So I'm just gonna try to take off small layers and sand the rest now. Sanded this down, smoothed it out, and I kind of like the distressed look about this side of it. It kind of just has the old with the new, like the old gray of this piece of wood with the new after, you know, some of it has been sanded off. And then of course the underside is still from where I cut it. But I do like this. I like, instead of just sanding all the way through to the new, I think I'm gonna leave it just like this. And I've wiped it down, cleaned it up, and this is our finished kind of wood piece here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a black trash bag down and I'm gonna mix together my 1-to-1 epoxy to seal this up. Now this is not the only piece that I'm gonna be sealing. I do have a few pieces of bark that I'm also gonna be, guys, that I'm also gonna try to incorporate in the table as well, that I'm gonna seal and paint those with some epoxy. So, and I may not end up using them, kind of just depends, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that while I have the epoxy made. Okay, my workspace is getting a little crowded, but here's what I'm working with. I've got my strips of bark here, got my 1-to-1 epoxy stuff, got a couple of different plastic cups, my gloves, and my piece of wood. So what I need to do now is I need to mix this epoxy 1-to-1 ratio that I can coat on the piece of wood. Oh, thanks, Alora. That way we can mix the correct amount. Now you're gonna wanna hand mix this. Some epoxies you can do the like drill stick blender. The 1-to-1, you want to hand mix it, for just read the instructions, because if you use a blender on it, it is going to put way too many air bubbles in your epoxy and your product is going to not turn out great. So hand mix this for the direct amount of time and then apply it. This, I don't know yet. I don't know yet about this bark, but I just did some just to see. But if you can see, there's like these little white micro bubbles that I need to take care of. So I'm gonna go get my heat gun and blast those. But if you can see, this piece of wood is soaking up this epoxy. Like, it is just going through it. And this is one of the reasons why we do this, so that when you do your deep pour, when you put your piece of wood in your deep pour, if you don't seal it, it's so possible that it just sucks up everything that you've just poured in there. So we want to seal this real good so that what we deep pour remains in the table and not inside this wood. So we will let this, I'm going to pop these bubbles, I'm going to mix some more epoxy, and we will do a round 2 once this kind of all settles in.
On the Denman homestead, where the sun sets golden in the west, we live in harmony with nature, doing what we love best. From the garden to the kitchen, and the bees inside their hive. On the Denman homestead, come along and plant, nourish, thrive.